Recently, I faced something no property owner should ever experience. Uniformed strangers claiming legal authority over land I've owned for decades. What started as a questionable citation escalated into discovering a sophisticated scheme targeting rural landowners across multiple states. The first warning shot began with a document, not politely delivered, but hammered into my wooden gatepost with a railroad spike. The paperwork bore an official-looking header: Eastfield Community Association Emergency Compliance. Notice: the violations listed seemed absurd. Unauthorized agricultural structures and livestock boundary infractions. Most puzzling was the $3,800 fine and 72-hour evacuation demand, signed by Margaret Thompson, Director of Regional Property Standards. Here's the problem. My ranch sits outside Eastfield's jurisdiction. I'm adjacent to their development, not within it. Yet Thompson apparently decided territorial boundaries were merely suggestions, like urban planning through manifest destiny. Initially, I dismissed it as elaborate junk mail until two men in tactical gear arrived in an unmarked sedan 30 minutes later. The first carried official-looking documentation. His partner wore a sidearm and maintained the stern expression of someone who'd recently failed police academy entrance exams. We're conducting mandatory property assessment under municipal emergency protocols, announced the documentation. Bearer, show me your warrant, I replied. Emergency. Community safety statutes authorize preliminary inspections without resident authorization, came his rehearsed response, essentially bureaucratic doublespeak. For no. I positioned myself between them and my livestock barn. Unless you're legitimate law enforcement with proper court orders, you're trespassing on private property. The armed companion shifted his stance, hand hovering near his weapon in what seemed designed as intimidation without actual brandishing. I maintained eye contact. Absent legal documentation or legitimate badges, you're on my land illegally. The lead man produced his phone. We'll document your noncompliance for escalation procedures. Please do, I responded. I appreciate thorough documentation. As they departed, I noticed something taped inside their windshield. A laminated badge reading, Community Standards Enforcement, obviously printed at home with crooked edges. I photographed everything, license plates, equipment fake credentials, then posted on local community boards. New cosplay unit spotted. Looks like private security discovered suburban enforcement. Comments flooded in immediately. One neighbor reported, same individuals questioned my grain storage last week, claimed health department authority. Another wrote, this isn't compliance enforcement. It's intimidation tactics. Then came this gem from elderly Bill Patterson. Warned everyone years ago, Thompson's organization isn't community management. It's organized extortion. The phone call while reading these responses, my phone rang. Thompson herself, voice dripping with artificial politeness and suburban authority. Mr. Rodriguez, confirming receipt of official documentation. You mean the paper illegally nailed to my gate? Nailed seems harsh. Posted for visibility under new emergency expansion protocols. Which protocols exactly? Approved at last quarterly meeting. Interesting, since I wasn't invited to said meeting. Reserved for Eastfield residents. I don't live in Eastfield. You do now. Click. That evening, I discovered orange survey markers along my northern property line, fresh stakes I hadn't installed. My goats were enthusiastically destroying two of them, apparently finding plastic surveyor flags delicious. Extracting one from the ground, I found coordinates scrawled in permanent marker. This wasn't bluffing. They were mapping my land. Filing reports next morning, I filed formal complaints at the county office regarding impersonation of law enforcement. The clerk raised eyebrows reading my documentation. We've received several similar reports. How many is several? You're number 14. I inquired about actions taken. She shook her head. Most people pay fines hoping the problem disappears. I'm not most people. No, clearly not. She handed me a contact card. Speak with this person. The name read, Detective Marcus Rodriguez, my cousin. That evening, I called Marcus, describing the fake enforcement officers and their amateur hour credentials. He went silent, then said, You're not the first case. I figured, but your situation differs. This isn't just about fines or property disputes. Then what? Control and their next phase plans. He paused. Can't discuss details over phone. Just maintain vigilance, the pieces clicked. This wasn't overreaching community association members playing Facebook politics. This was coordinated, systematic, and my property was phase one of something larger. What Marcus didn't mention that night, Thompson had attempted this scheme previously. Different target, identical script, and that landowner vanished. 2 weeks post-eviction, his property was donated to community development. Except now it's a private retreat and Thompson owns it. The morning siege didn't start with sirens. It began with amplified announcements. Eastfield Community Standards Division. Exit premises immediately. This reached my ears at 6:30 a.m. while pouring coffee and watching my goats engage in territorial disputes over empty feed containers. Initially, I thought I was dreaming. Then amber lights flashed at my main gate, overly theatrical. For someone who'd never earned legitimate credentials. I stepped onto my porch wearing a shirt reading "Try Defense." Me and discovered 5 black vehicles idling at my gravel road entrance. No license plates, just stenciled numbers. Magnetic signs proclaimed, Community Enforcement, Eastfield Standards Division. 7 people emerged wearing full khaki uniforms, steel-toed boots, utility belts with radios. One operated what appeared to be drone equipment. Another carried laminated folders like badges. Then, like a soap opera villain's entrance, Thompson exited the lead vehicle. Clipboard, sunglasses, windbreaker probably costing more than my tractor. "Good morning," she announced with wellness check cheerfulness rather than raid aggression. Initiating Phase 2 compliance assessment. I sipped coffee. Did Phase 1 get lost in transit? You received proper notification. Your non-response triggers authorized inspection and seizure of code-violating structures or materials. Which code specifically? Eastfield Community Expanded Covenant, Article D. No such document exists. Ratified at our most recent board meeting. There is no board. There is now. She signaled her team, who moved with military precision, or at least YouTube military training. 2 approached my barn. 1 launched the drone. Another began perimeter reconnaissance like conducting battlefield assessment. I stepped off my porch, one hand in my jacket pocket, maintaining calm control. They froze as if someone hit pause. "Sir, please don't interfere," one warned. "Interfere with what?" "Planning to arrest me for walking my own property? We're operating under community authority." "You're playing dress-up in discount tactical gear." Thompson maintained her smile but stepped forward. "We can resolve this peacefully or escalate." "Your choice," I laughed. "You brought 7 rental security guards and aerial surveillance to inspect a barn. Not just the barn. Unauthorized fencing, livestock zone violations, and unregistered utility connections." "Fascinating," I replied. "Since the barn stood for 30 years, the livestock were born on site, and utilities are county permitted. Want documentation? We'll make those determinations ourselves." "No, you won't," she waved 2 forward. They managed 6 steps before I whistled loudly. My goats, chaos-loving creatures, began sprinting toward the barn in unison. 1 guard flinched. "What the hell?" "They dislike strangers," I explained, "especially ones carrying radios." Thompson raised her phone, recording. "Additional evidence of escalating hostility from non-compliant residents." "Documenting everything." I smiled at her camera. "Record away, Thompson. That footage will look excellent when subpoenaed." Before anyone could respond, another vehicle arrived. A marked sheriff's cruiser. Deputy Martinez emerged, calm, confident, genuinely legitimate. "Everything acceptable here?" Thompson turned. "We're executing community association enforcement operations." "Please stand back," Martinez cocked an eyebrow. "You're what now?" "These residents violate multiple codes. We're conducting legal inspection." He addressed me. "Did you invite these people?" "Absolutely not." "Do you consent to this inspection?" "Definitely not." "Then they're trespassing." He faced Thompson. "Ma'am, you and your unit must vacate immediately. Also, that drone. It's illegal flying over private agricultural property without proper clearance." Thompson's eye twitched. "This is outrageous. This is law." She clenched her jaw, leaning close enough for only me to hear. "Hope your daughter enjoys scholarship applications from a property with multiple violations." My blood chilled. I didn't show reaction, but in that moment I wanted her completely gone. They withdrew slowly, maintaining formation. As the final vehicle departed, I noticed one younger team member hesitate. He looked at my barn, then at me, and briefly his expression cracked. Regret. Uncertainty. I'll never know what he was thinking because Thompson barked orders and he turned away. There's always one, I muttered. The recruit with a conscience. After 5 minutes, I walked to my barn, running my hand along weathered siding. My father built it himself. Reclaimed lumber, screws from the mill's discarded materials. He called it the Independence Shed, saying it would outlast any rule book. Now it had surveillance drone footage recorded of every angle. The inside source that evening, Marcus, appeared at my back fence. No uniform, no announcement, just a nod and 6-pack of beer. We sat on my porch swing like teenagers again. That was classic Thompson. Complete theater, all smoke. Then why does it feel effective? He cracked a beer. Because you're not merely a target, you're a precedent. If she eliminates you, others surrender. She threatened my daughter. Then she's panicked. I asked about other cases. 3 counties, possibly 4. People signing property over to avoid lawsuits they can't afford. All buried in legal jargon and association policies nobody voted on. She's not intelligent enough to design this system. She didn't. But she's ruthless enough to operate it. He stood. I'll be positioned but can't intervene unless she crosses legal lines. She already has. Then obtain proof. Clean, solid evidence and maintain clear thinking. I'm recording everything 6 different ways. Good. Because what's coming next isn't clipboards and fines. While I prepared for another gate confrontation, I missed the threat already inside, because someone I trusted was feeding Thompson everything. The sabotage campaign's small problems began accumulating quickly. Tools relocated, gates left unlatched, fence wire loosened when it should be taut. Maggie, one of my goats, wandered into the road chewing a survey flag like it owed her money. Initially, I attributed this to normal farm chaos. Goats are naturally mischievous. But then power cut out twice, not during storms, no reported outages, just blackouts. Every occurrence happened while barn security cameras uploaded footage to cloud storage. That caught my attention. The final straw came when pasture fencing shorted during clear weather. Right after I'd repaired it. Clean cut-through copper wire. No animal damage, no corrosion, just intentional severance. Someone wasn't breaking in. They were already inside. I reviewed logs and motion sensors. Every malfunction occurred during shifts covered by one person. Derek. Tall, quiet, recently hired. He came recommended from neighboring property management. Always punctual, never talkative. Lately, he'd been asking unusual questions. Not about livestock, about systems. Where's the backup generator located? Got redundancy for the redundancy. Ever consider solar backup systems? Initially helpful sounding, until I noticed him walking around with his phone at chest level. Screen illuminated, camera pointed upward, toward the barn loft window where I keep my safe. I tested him. I created a decoy storage area with a binder labeled Property Transfer Options Confidential, filled with blank paper, left unlocked. 3 days later, it vanished. Rather than confront him immediately, I waited and watched. At 11:17 p.m. on Thursday, the well cam detected motion. I accessed live feed. There he was, hooded, flashlight in one hand, black messenger bag over shoulder, sneaking across my property like he owned it. I grabbed what I needed and stepped into the cold. I caught him near the pump house. Forget to clock out? He spun, dropped the flashlight and bag, and ran. Without thinking, I pursued. We tore through the side pasture, past the southern gate, fresh hoofprints visible in mud. He was fast, but didn't know the terrain like I did. He made it halfway to the woods before tripping on irrigation piping and eating dirt. I reached him before he could scramble up. Let's talk. It's not what it appears. Then say something intelligent in the next 10 seconds. He paused, and surprisingly, didn't beg. He snapped. You think you're some hero occupying stolen land, issuing orders like you're superior to everyone else? Thompson told me what this place really represents. Told me your family manipulated the original land transaction. That this property was always supposed to return to community control. I stared. You mean Thompson, the association director, told you my father was a land thief? She showed me documentation. She also told you to cut my fence. She said you wouldn't listen rationally, that you posed a risk. He attempted to stand. I pushed him back down. So you were, what, performing community service? They planned to take it anyway. I just accelerated the timeline. He opened the bag. Inside, a burner phone tablet hand-sketched property map with red ink annotations. Trigger points. Camera blind spot. Well, access unguarded. And one phrase underlined twice. Evacuation protocol, November 6th. I checked the date. 2 days away. I activated the tablet. It auto-launched to a folder titled Phase 3 Rodriguez. Inside, surveillance photographs, power usage charts, security camera stills from angles I'd never installed, and a PDF labeled Priority Report Subject Non-Compliant. Acceleration recommended. Marcus and I reviewed it later that night. It contained phrases like narrative control deteriorating. Subject demonstrates resistance to de-escalation. Consider legal civil order filing under expanded association clause. At the bottom, authorization M. Thompson. No more speculation. Thompson wasn't reacting. She was orchestrating the entire operation. The forged documents, then came the paperwork. Falsified documents, property transfer forms, quitclaim deed, my name on signature lines I'd never touched, filed with the county, stamped, processed, listed under co-ownership with an entity called Heritage Valley Holdings. I retrieved the authentic land deed from my loft safe. Thick, yellowed paper bearing my father's signature. Laid side by side with the forgery, they matched almost perfectly. Same layout, ink, file number, except for one detail. Mine had wet signature. The forgery was scanned, digitally lifted, pasted, filed weeks ago. She's attempting to sell the property from under you, Marcus said, to a shell developer she's connected with. And the county approved? At least one official did, probably more. This is fraud. This is theft. Later that night, I sat in the barn on the same bench where my father used to read newspapers, drinking black coffee from a dented tin mug. I retrieved the old folder he left when he passed. Receipts, surveys, maps, and one final record. A rejected purchase offer. Margaret Thompson. She'd attempted buying our land 3 decades ago, got denied, and now used forged papers and corrupted county officials to finish what she started. She's been targeting this place since before I could drive, I told Marcus. He nodded, and now she has signatures. Not for long, because that forged deed wasn't the conclusion, it was the trigger. The contract Thompson filed didn't just transfer ownership interest. It granted construction rights, and what she planned to build wouldn't just eliminate my farm, it would erase every trace I'd ever existed. My father's insurance policy, I always thought my father was slightly paranoid. Not maliciously, just prepared for everything. The man stockpiled firewood like expecting another ice age and maintained 6 sets of spare keys, buried in marked coffee cans around the property. Security through confusion, he used to say. If they don't understand the boundaries, they can't violate them. Turns out he wasn't paranoid. He was prescient. The day after discovering the forged deed, I opened old floorboards at the barn's rear. Inside, a steel lockbox labeled in faded red marker, "Rabbit Dust," a phrase meaningless to anyone except me. Our private code, a joke from when I was 10 and asked what eminent domain meant. Means the government thinks your land's worth more to them than you, so they call it progress. And you call it theft. Inside the box, receipts, survey maps, permits, carbon copies of letters dating to the 1980s, and one thick spiral notebook titled, "Land Disputes Resolved and Pending." He'd documented every challenge, complaint, attempt to rezone Eastfield, and one name appeared repeatedly in red ink, Margaret Thompson. I found a section dated March 1992. Inside was a detailed proposal for luxury subdivision, tennis courts, gated access, clubhouse with fitness center, filed by Thompson when she was junior agent at a development firm, stamped denied in block letters. Zoning conflict, environmental impact, structural consequences excessive. In my father's handwriting, he'd circled her name. She'll try again. Not with a company, with paperwork. Suddenly, everything clicked. This wasn't just about power. This was personal. I remembered something, a flash, a scene from childhood I didn't realize was still there. Thompson at our front gate. I was 10, sitting on porch steps with legs swinging. She wore a blazer, hair pinned up, clipboard in hand, like she already owned the county. My father met her halfway down the drive. "Mr. Rodriguez," she'd said. "I think we started incorrectly. You don't get a second chance if you use the first one kicking down doors," he replied. She smiled like it didn't affect her. This property could be worth triple current value. You'd be serving the community. He didn't blink. The answer remains no. She didn't yell or argue, just nodded, turned, and left. But her expression, that wasn't the face of someone defeated. It was someone who would wait 30 years to win. The network exposed back in the barn, Marcus and I spread every document across the floor alongside the forged deed Derek had stolen. We found zoning overlays that had been altered, easement rights marked abandoned, stamps from the county office that didn't match authentic ones, but the gold mine. A development contract between Heritage Valley Holdings and a silent fund called Progressive Growth Alliance Trust. The contract labeled my farm Phase 1 Redevelopment Priority Zone, signed by Thompson, co-signed by Robert Chen, County Zoning Supervisor, the same man who told me 2 weeks ago over coffee. Hope you never sell this place. There's something sacred about land with history. Now he was trying to erase it. Marcus muttered something and pulled out his phone. This isn't just fraud anymore. Then what? Strategic acquisition through intimidation and forgery. How extensive? Extensive enough to keep me awake at night. Later that night, I opened my father's old cassette player. The tape was labeled Town Hall, March 1992. Scratchy but audible. This proposal benefits everyone, Thompson said. We need housing, infrastructure, progress. You mean concrete, my father replied. And control. You're obstructing the future. I'm protecting the present. You're making this personal. Only because you made it first. Silence. Then someone clapped. The tape ended. Marcus returned with a manila folder. Inside leaked association minutes, not from this year, from last. That's how long this had been planned. One section read, Monitor subject movements. Begin mail redirection strategy. Secure barn as future equipment site. Develop mental instability narrative if resistance escalates. Beneath it, contingency plan, civil enforcement, fake law enforcement protocol. She had contingencies for everything. Yet she panicked the moment I printed every file, mailed copies to 3 local papers, and dropped one on her porch with a note. Still not yours, she cracked. Posted a video online, standing before her association banner, hair immaculate, voice trembling. Certain individuals have spread false accusations about me and this community. I have never engaged in unlawful activity. This is harassment, misinformation. I demand it cease. The comment section was merciless. Blink twice if you're lying. Lady, nobody believes you didn't forge something. You look forged. Let me guess, Community Association stands for Constantly Harassing Agriculture. The video was removed within 3 hours, but I archived it. Back in the barn, I found one more note from my father tucked in the notebook's back, circled in red. They can only take it if they can prove you were never supposed to have it. Underneath, a map with a property line Thompson had crossed. And the man who owned that strip wasn't just a neighbor, he was an attorney, and he'd been waiting for Thompson to make a mistake, which meant the next time she stepped past that boundary, she wouldn't just be trespassing. She'd be triggering a legal takedown she'd never anticipate, the final confrontation. It began like a storm before dawn, not loud or sudden, just pressure, a shift in atmosphere that made dogs restless and wind change direction without reason. This time I didn't flinch because I was finally ready. The barn was wired. Every perimeter inch under surveillance, streamed to encrypted off-site servers backed up 6 ways. Marcus had off-duty deputies stationed 2 fields over, monitoring live feeds with binoculars and vigilant eyes, and I had something else waiting in the barn, a little surprise I called Plan B, Beast Mode. At 9:04 a.m. it commenced. 5 SUVs, black, dust-covered, fast. They didn't arrive politely. They invaded, skidding into my front drive like breaching a compound gate. Thompson emerged first. Beige blazer, dark sunglasses, the expression of someone who still believed she held leverage. She brought backup, 9 fake compliance officers with radio earpieces, zip ties, and clipboards wielded like weapons. Mr. Rodriguez, she announced loud enough for the entire valley to hear. You've left us no alternative. She held up documentation like a royal proclamation. Under Emergency Community Association Directive, this property is hereby placed under administrative hold pending complete inspection. Looks impressive, I said. but unless it's signed by a judge, it's decorative garbage. You're in violation, you're in denial. She nodded to her crew. 2 started toward the south gate. Another approached the barn. 1 carried a crowbar. Another wore a body camera like this was a training video for how not to get sued into the Stone Age. Everything you're doing, I said, is being recorded. They paused. 5 cameras, 2 deputies monitoring live, county attorney reviewing footage. Please continue. Thompson's jaw tightened as she tried maintaining composure. We have jurisdiction. You have delusions. We're acting on community behalf. Which part? The part suing you or the part filming this disaster? That's when she gave the order. Proceed. One of her people, tall, 20-something, probably didn't even understand what easement meant, stepped toward the barn and touched the door. Bad move. Plan B activated. Motion sensors triggered. Spotlights snapped on. Sirens wailed. Then a deep voice blasted through speakers across the property. This is Detective Rodriguez. You are now trespassing on private property under investigation. Step away from the building immediately. Thompson flinched. 2 crew members stumbled backward. The guy with the crowbar dropped it. 1 turned to her, whispering something inaudible. Another muttered into his radio. She said we had clearance. She said we were covered. Thompson ignored them, her first mistake. Her second was not looking behind her. From the rear pasture, attorney Dan Wallace walked forward, wide-brimmed hat, clean boots, thick file in hand. Thompson barely noticed until he was 5 feet away. Ms. Thompson, he said, you've crossed onto my land. This is part of the Eastfield zoning tract. That tract stops 25 feet west. This is private land, and this, he held up the file, is a cease and desist order, effective immediately. Thompson tried laughing. This is community enforcement action. Dan didn't blink. Funny, because the community just filed a class action lawsuit against your organization for fraud, harassment, and illegal property seizure. He leaned closer. And the judge who overturned your hold? She lives 2 blocks from me. Thompson's face fell. Not all at once, but bit by bit, the veneer cracking. First the eyes, then the mouth, then silence. You'll regret this, she finally said. I stepped forward. Already did, back in 1992 when we offered you lemonade. That's when actual law enforcement arrived. 4 county cruisers, sirens silent, doors synchronized. Marcus emerged from the lead car like he'd been waiting for this scene his entire career. Everyone hands-free, he said. Let's keep this clean. Thompson didn't move, so he held up documentation. Signed warrant. Fraud, forgery, unlawful impersonation of law enforcement, civil code violations. You can't arrest me, she said. That's adorable, Marcus replied. But yes, I can. They cuffed her. Not dramatically, no screaming, no struggle, just defeat. Heavy, hollow, final. The rest of her crew folded like lawn furniture in a hurricane. 1 tried running, made it 10 feet. Another sat on gravel and asked, Can I still qualify as a whistleblower? Marcus nodded. If you talk fast. The crowd gathered quickly. Neighbors who'd been too scared to speak started applauding. Someone filmed from a drone. Another brought his teenage daughter, who yelled, That's the lady who tried to fine us for putting up Christmas lights. Thompson didn't look at them, but they looked at her like finally the neighborhood monster was real and in handcuffs. Mrs. Patterson rolled up in a golf cart, parked at the gate, and raised an iced tea glass like a champagne toast. Told you, she said. Woman's Community Association Hitler with a hyphenated last name. But even with Thompson down, something itched at my brain. Because as Marcus was loading evidence bags, his deputy called over. Hey, you need to see this. A tablet recovered from Thompson's SUV. 1 email, no sender. No body, no name, just a subject line. Reassignment, pilot zone, Midwest beta, and coordinates. Not mine. Somewhere else. So while Thompson was going down for everything she'd built, she wasn't the architect. She was just the pilot program, and those coordinates led to someone else's land, someone who hadn't fought back yet. The aftermath, they took Thompson away that afternoon. No sunglasses, no clipboard, no fake vest, just handcuffs. The look of someone who'd finally realized her script had run out of pages. She didn't cry, but her silence was louder than any meltdown could have been. Her mugshot made the local paper by sunset. Channel 9 ran footage twice. By morning, it had 85,000 shares on social media with headlines like, Association President cuffed for fake raid gets served by real sheriff, her victim's brother. My face was pixelated. Hers wasn't. The association website went offline that night. The board of directors page now leads to a 404 error. Someone in town, I still don't know who, started printing bumper stickers reading "Thompson isn't law." A high school student made t-shirts with her mugshot and caption, "Violation, arrogance." Section 8, paragraph stupid, her empire crumbled from within. 7 officers flipped. 4 county employees were suspended for rubber stamping fake permits. Robert Chen resigned to focus on family. Marcus said the state DA is investigating quietly but thoroughly, but that wasn't what kept me awake at night. That email, reassignment, pilot zone, Midwest Beta. No sender, no body, just coordinates. 2 counties over, I found Grace Martinez. She owned a small ranch, newer, cleaner. She met me at her gate with a rake in one hand and no patience for nonsense. "If you're here about code enforcement..." "Not exactly," I said. "I'm here about Thompson." I showed her a copy of my forged deed. She went pale, disappeared into her shed, and returned with a manila envelope. Inside was a letter with Community Association header. Same wording as mine. Phase 1 Redevelopment Priority Zone. The signature at bottom wasn't Thompson's, but it was someone we'd encountered. Heritage Valley Holdings. She was next. Maybe already targeted, possibly already being monitored. We shared everything, files, footage, testimonies. Within 2 weeks, Grace filed an injunction with state attorney assistance. 3 weeks later, the association representing her community went silent. She sent me a photo of her land at sunrise with a note. "Still standing. Still mine." Then came the others. 5 more landowners in 4 states. Different names, different associations, same threat, same development group, same blueprint. This wasn't Thompson's plan. It was a playbook. And Thompson was just running Chapter 1. I handed everything to a contact in the state AG's office. They didn't make promises but asked for silence. The message was clear. We're not just investigating this association. We're examining the network behind them. Moving forward, the ranch stayed mine. Marcus helped me reinforce boundaries. I rebuilt the barn door, sanded porch steps, upgraded cameras. The goats returned to being the most dangerous thing on the property. But I didn't return to who I was before. I walked the fence every morning. Not just checking lines, but remembering that power doesn't always come in uniforms. Sometimes it comes with clipboards, smiles, and forged signatures. And if you don't pay attention, it erases you quietly. Legally. Some neighbors still wave. Some still don't. But Mrs. Patterson dropped off preserves and a note. "Next time, run for mayor, sheriff, or God." I didn't run. I built, I prepared. I paid attention. A month after Thompson's arrest, a black envelope appeared at my gate. No return address, no note. Just a wax seal and printed card inside. One symbol, a triangle overlaid with a stylized house. Below it, new coordinates. I held it for hours, considered burning it, considered driving there. Instead, I logged the data, stored it in the same lockbox where my father kept rabbit dust because someday someone else might need it. And if they do, they won't be starting from scratch. Final thoughts, I used to think the law was a wall, thick, permanent. But it's not. It's paper, and paper only holds until someone decides to light a match. So if you think Thompson was the end of the story, you haven't seen the rest of the map. Because that email wasn't a glitch. It was a starting point, and someone out there just circled the next zone.